Did Matthew McConaughey's deal with the devil finally expire? Has the McConaissance been McCona-cancelled? I think so. In The Dark Tower, a loose adaptation / continuation of Stephen King's interminable 8-book fantasy series, McConaughey plays Walter, aka the Man in Black, some kind of evil wizard used car salesman that's supposed to be scary, but just looks like a less creepily sexual version of David Bowie in Labyrinth. Imagine, if you will, David Bowie, but with black hair plugs, a disco necklace, and no gigantic bulge in his pants. McConaughey also grew his fingernails out just long enough to make it distracting and gross every time you see his hands on screen. Like, there's short nails, there's long manicured nails, and then there's the in-between kind where you look like you probably eat mostly ramen packets and raw onions for dinner. Walter seeks to destroy the Dark Tower, a structure that protects the universe from an unseen evil just outside our reality, kinda like Russia. The tower is defended by the gunslinger Roland, played by professional house music DJ Idris Elba, aka Big Driss. Yes, Idris Elba is a house music DJ. Roland spends most of his time grimacing or shooting monsters that look like someone drew eyes and a mouth on an old dish rag. Roland's also really f***ing dull and serious all the time, which I guess you would be too if your life consisted of wandering a scaldingly hot post-apocalyptic desert in a giant leather jacket. Seriously, why do people in these movies always wear jackets in the desert, like in Mad Max or Indiana Jones? Are they looking to die faster? A young boy named Jake, played by an actor who is aggressively forgettable, stumbles upon a portal to another dimension that puts him directly in the middle of this battle between good and evil. Will Walter destroy this big black phallic symbol, which by the way, was my nickname in high school, and destroy the entire fabric of existence in the process? What do you think? But let's talk about Matthew McConaughey for a second. Journey back with me to 2014, a simpler time when Donald Trump was just an obnoxious reality show host with a bunch of crackpot theories about Barack Obama's birth certificate. O.J. Simpson was still in prison, One Direction was still together, and Matthew McConaughey was still sitting on top of the entertainment industry. 2014 was the apex of a career revitalization we now call the McConaissance. True Detective, Killer Joe, Dallas Buyers Club, Bernie, The Wolf of Wall Street, Mud, and Interstellar. He'd done it all and won a variety of trophies for his great work. But all good things must come to a McCona end. His big comeback was supposed to be expensive summer blockbuster, The Dark Tower, but it wasn't. Instead, this piece of reminds audiences how frustrating and lazy McConaughey can be when presented with substandard material. Does anybody remember Ghost of Girlfriend's Past? Sahara? Ring a bell? Fool's Gold? Anything? You can actually see when his eyes alternate between a charming twinkle and the vast deadness that can only be seen on a person waiting for a very large check to clear. But The Dark Tower's greatest sin, besides occasionally looking so much like a Sci-Fi Channel original movie, is that it's so boring. The moments of pathos fall flat. The action is either sluggish or lit so poorly that you might as well be watching two ink blots piss on each other. And the overall design is so generic that it seems like an algorithm directed this movie. This might be Google's first AI-produced film for all I know. The Dark Tower is only 90 minutes long, but it feels like it lasts an eternity. Today's film industry word of the day is exposition. Exposition is all the dialogue the characters spout to explain what's happening, why it's happening, and what's about to happen next. Modern action movies have a tendency to stop the narrative momentum of the film in order to dump exposition and backstory onto the audience just before the next mind-numbing series of explosions is unfurled on the screen. Exposition that's conveyed poorly weighs down movies and TV shows, especially ones based on source material like novels and comic books with tons of details and dates and character names. Clever filmmakers can find ways to expose audiences to this information without shoving it down their throats. Or you can be like the makers of HBO's Game of Thrones and throw a few naked people on the screen to keep you occupied while someone explains what the Dragonglass does. The Dark Tower has to squeeze the inscrutable mythology of 8 novels, some short stories, and a few comic books into a 90-minute movie. It glosses over the entire concept of what a gunslinger is, or why the hell this Walter guy is so hell-bent on destroying the tower. Why does everything in Midworld look like the Old West? Why does a gunslinger have 8 different kinds of hepatitis? And since when are there 8 different kinds of hepatitis? None of this is all that important to the story. But at no point does the story ever find any one thing or character to give a about. There's also a bizarre fixation on tiny references to other Stephen King books. Yes, I know the Dark Tower series intends to unify the King books into something of a coherent universe, but why does this movie think it matters when the camera lingers on a photo of the hotel from The Shining? This is like if a Marvel movie stopped every 10 minutes to linger on a close-up of the Incredible Hulk's jorts. Or like in Deadpool when Colossus was in the movie for no reason. The first Lord of the Rings movie drowned you in exposition in the first 5 minutes and then kept dunking your head back into it like you're bobbing for apples. But at least the world seemed consistent and interesting. Also, the Lord of the Rings movie was almost 3 hours long. The Dark Tower, if you missed this, was only 90 minutes. If you want me to understand and appreciate that Idris Elba's gun is forged from the steel of King Arthur's sword, slow the down. I can't believe I'm saying this, but yes, I'm actually asking for the Dark Tower to be longer. But that's what movies do these days. They lull you into submission with exposition, or the classy term for it, mythology. Ooh, the mythology is so rich in this movie. I feel like I'm in the world. Everything is connected. Most of the time, this is just window dressing or faux profundity. Or at worst, it's fan service for people who read the books or watched the TV show that the movie is based on, because everything these days is based on something else. As a matter of fact, and for full disclosure, Cinemacope is actually an adaptation of a Bulgarian web series called Skrib, hosted by a rotating cast of malnourished war criminals. Check it out. It's hard to find, but worth your time. So who is this movie actually for? Well, I'm glad you asked, kids. This movie is for Azrael. He makes custom messenger bags from 70% hemp out of his uncle's garage in Palmyra, New Jersey. He collects blacklight Led Zeppelin posters and usually wears socks with sandals. He has super long fingernails, just like Matthew McConaughey in this movie, but not because he's an actual demon. He just needs them to be long because he spends most of his time playing the mandolin. He's never read the Dark Tower novels, but he has definitely jerked off to an old heavy metal comic book. Yes, kids, you used to have to jerk off to magazines. You have no idea how good it is right now, guys. You can jerk off wherever you want. You can jerk off at your mom's house, at your dad's house, at your stepdad's house. You can jerk off in the park, at the post office, at the zoo, in the street, on the sidewalk, at the top of the Empire State Building, and the jerk-off stuff goes all the way down to the ground. As a matter of fact, don't jerk off at any of the places I just mentioned because it is potentially, actually definitely illegal to jerk off in public. So don't do that. Don't jerk off at the Dark Tower either. Don't go see the Dark Tower. Instead, go see El Topo, Alejandro Jodorowsky's surrealist, almost biblical take on cowboy mythology. It has a clearer thesis and a more potent visual style, despite, or because, it was written and directed by someone who was potentially tripping on peyote the entire time. Thanks for watching Cinemacope. Let me know in the comments what you want me to review. I actually read the comments, so the guy who said I look like Black Fred Armisen, I see you, I remember your name, and I will find you. Also, disclaimer, do not masturbate in public. I really want to make that clear to everyone. That's not okay.